Quick introduction to Descartes. I have a couple of videos where I discuss each meditation in detail, but what I want to do is give you guys just a short sort of instruction on what to do. Like, what am I focusing on in Descartes? Because we're going to do a couple of things with Descartes. We're going to talk about his epistemology. I'm going to write a different color pen. Sorry. We're going to talk about his epistemology. We're going to talk about skepticism, which is part of his epistemology. We're going to talk about him being a foundationalist, how he justifies belief. So this has to do with justification. We're going to talk about, how he knows stuff, or how he claims to know stuff, especially stuff about the external world. So what is the external world? That's everything outside of your mind. So that's tables, your body, other people's bodies, other people's minds. Whether or not the tree that you look outside your window and see is real, whether or not the table in front of you is real, this video, and so forth. Whether or not they're real, and what you can know about them. And so that's going to be in conversation with Kant and his conception of external world, the external world and the objects in it. So we're going to talk about his epistemology. We're also going to talk about his metaphysics. Because in order to understand his epistemology, we have to understand his metaphysics. And so there's all those other videos are going to help with that. And of course, if you have any questions, please email me. Come to the office hours, to the review sessions, that sort of stuff. It's going to help you. But his metaphysics include an ontology, which is just the things that exist. It's onto means being. So it's the study of things that exist or things that are. And his ontology is very basic at the beginning. God is in it. So this is just a symbol for God. And his mind, his own mind. Right, so you need to understand his ontology. He talks about substances, what a mind is, what a body is, these sorts of things. We're going to talk about his metaphysics, and that's going to be in discussion with Elizabeth of Bohemia, Princess Elizabeth. So we're going to do a lot with Descartes. So it's very important that you understand Descartes to the best of your ability, which means you're going to have to read the entirety of the meditations very carefully, very thoroughly, and ask questions so that we can have these conversations about what skepticism is, about Descartes' answer to skepticism, what his ontology is and why that matters, what's the issue between him and Elizabeth of Bohemia, how do we understand that? And the reason that we start with Descartes is because first the meditations are just really well organized. It is a good introduction to this, like, okay, here's a reason, here's an answer to a question, here's a reason in support of it. Okay, let's evaluate that. He considers objections. It's a very good introduction to that, and also a turning point in philosophy. Descartes is a modern philosopher, and he's writing in a time period where there's a ton of information available. There's intellectual revolutions happening everywhere. You have the Reformation, you have the printing press, you have people who would never have received an education now receiving educations. We can exchange communications very easily, manuscripts, letters. It is a profound time to be operating in that region of the world. And Descartes' work marks a transition between this medieval period where philosophy was heavily engaged in a particular sort of project, which is mostly conversations about God and God's nature and how we can be good people and get to heaven and what it means. And it's mostly theological, not entirely, but mostly theological. We get the shift to these concerns about skepticism. And what Descartes does is he puts us into this profound sense that we should doubt our senses, doubt the existence of the external world. And then he tries to bring us out of that, right, with his foundationalism and his story about God and his own mind and how it interacts with the body. he tells us this story, and then what it does is it just radically changes philosophy. It changes the sorts of conversations that people are having and what they care about. And it's no longer like, God exists, and so that's all we have to talk about. It's God exists, and he exists in a particular way. What does this tell us about our predicament, our epistemic reality, our epistemic predicament, given the type of creature we are? So it's a profound change. That's where we're starting with him. We can understand a lot about the rest of philosophy, the rest of the history of philosophy from the modern period on, if we can get our heads around Descartes.